These are the top 25 times when martial artists went God mode in the movies. Donnie Yen just felt like the right choice to kick off this list, didn't he? His battle against Mak Wai in the jungle sure seems to be appropriate for the occasion. Fung versus Mon was just something else because what the heck is even going on here? Are these two even humans? Mon is straight up ripping branches and Fung is countering him without even getting bamboozled in the slightest. I would have probably just lost after looking at the way Donnie Yen was staring at his opponent the entire time. But yeah, it's a thrilling display of ferocity that lives up to its hype. I mentioned this scene multiple times before, and it keeps finding its way back into my videos. This film is definitely an absolute masterpiece as it comes from Jackie Chan's peak period. Just look at that double kick. It's so clean and athletic, isn't it? This movie had groundbreaking storyboards and editing, extremely exciting action design, no sloppiness, and a tense and exciting plot. It can be said to be one of the most outstanding action movies in the history of world cinema, and all of its core aspects culminate into the mall battle. Chan goes absolutely berserk in his demolition job and he makes sure not to spare anyone from his attacks. See, this is what Jackie Chan was capable of when it wasn't just about him being goofy and funny. Bro could kick some serious butt with Giga Chad energy. Hey, just because it's a video on martial artists doesn't mean it only has to be men, right? We've got Zen from 2008's Chocolate, who gives us an epic display of skills in the dojo battle. Not only does she counter multiple enemies at the same time, she's also able to defeat Thomas and his erratic fighting style. Yeah, I know the presentation of Thomas isn't going to sit well with modern audiences, but hey, he's a good fighter and I'm not going to exclude him. Zen impresses one and all with the flawless execution of her techniques, which I like to call goddess mode. Overall, it's a great sequence which managed to shed some light on the highly talented Yanin Jija Vismitananda, who's an actual martial artist herself. That's right, those moves aren't just for show. Just because you put Jet Li in a cage with dozens of fighters doesn't mean it's a good idea to attack him. Su isn't one to be affected by numbers, and he proves it by beating up everyone who comes in his way, even that dude with the red t-shirt who apparently couldn't feel any of the initial punches. The usage of the fighting ring was also a pretty cool way for Su to emerge the victor, especially towards the end when he relies on the cage breaking to allow him some extra moving room. Yeah, I know it starts off with the fighters going at him one after another, but later they do attack him all at once, so I'll give this scene credit for at least trying to be realistic.
Put me down or I'll kick your ass, Bruce!
I'm not Bruce.
You can use all kinds of weapons on Rama, but that man has survived Mad Dog, so he ain't gonna go down so easily, is he? The battle between Baseball Batman and Hammer Girl was a lot of things, and excessively gory was one of them. Forget the intense fight scenes that happen throughout the sequence, just look at how Rama finishes the both of them off. Hammer Girl was bad enough, but the way Baseball Batman got smashed had me quivering in my own seat. I read somewhere that the only reason the Raid 3 isn't going to happen anytime soon is because the director Gareth Evans legit thinks he can't do any better than what he did here. He peaked and chose to leave the stage on a high note, and I really respect that. Of course, if the Rage 3 does end up happening, I'll respect that too. Scott Adkins is definitely an S-tier fighter with very few equals, but as luck would have it in this particular scene, he came face to face with somebody even better, Donnie freaking Yen. Ip Man vs Barton was nothing short of a trip as both characters went hammer and tongs at each other with no respite or mercy. While it did look like Barton was going to win the encounter, Ip Man managed to come back in totally ethereal fashion, and he beat down his opponent with the power of skill and cold stares. To be fair to Barton, he did make Ip Man struggle even when he did activate his final boss mode, so we should at least give him some credit for that, right? You know, I was in a street fight about 2 years ago with a dude the size of Scott Adkins, but luckily my 2 months of intense karate training came in very handy. They actually got me 6 weeks of free hospital food and the company of some beautiful nurses. This whole movie was about Jet Li basically killing other Jet Lis so that he could become the ultimate Jet Li. Well, you can look at it any way you want, but the fact remains that Jet Li is indeed the chosen one. The battle between Gabe Law and Gabriel Yulaw was strange to watch because we were watching Jet Li versus himself. It was so amazing that Jason freaking Statham was made to feel like a side piece over here. Well, the movie was never about him anyway, but the point still remains that Gabe totally pulled a rabbit out of the hat here. He was able to take down Gabriel and gain the upper hand right before the wormhole opened, and that's essentially what matters in the context of this entry. The one accurate thing I can definitively say is that Jet Li definitely went God mode here. Joe Taslim may not be a very big name globally, especially if you compare him to some of the all-timers, but the man sure knows how to pull off an action sequence. 2018's The Night Comes For Us had him going bonkers on a whole gym full of people, and he gives us some really sick gore in the form of how he rips some of his opponents open. Ito wastes no time in establishing himself as the dominant force amongst the many others in his presence, but of course, nobody has their own safety in mind when it's dozens of men against one, so all of them get their butts handed to them. And then some. Please note that this scene isn't only brutal, but also sad in the context of the movie. In this very gym, Ito and his friends used to chill and train back when they were young, but now all of them are either dead or have become his enemies. It's pretty tragic stuff. It's very important to know what triggers a man, because if he happens to be Danny the Dog from 2005's Unleashed, then it's a matter of life and death. Let me just say that Jet Li is definitely going to be dominating this video, so be prepared for more of him, okay? Now, as far as this one's concerned, it's quite literally the depiction of his awakening as some god of war. All it takes is a fancy "get him" from Bob Hoskins, and Danny goes ballistic on everyone in front of him. It was almost as if we were witnessing the human version of a machine gun. The man was just not stopping, no matter what happened, and it was only until his boss asked him to stop
You borrow money from me.
that the carnage actually ended. Seriously, man, I don't know how they pull off all these stunts, making them look so realistic. It genuinely looks like Jet Li has brought hell upon all of his victims here.
You just signed your own death certificate, player.
Oh yeah, Michael Jai White wasn't going to be ignored in this list, and it was only appropriate to include Blood and Bone as his official entry. It's not every day that you see a lot of martial arts happening inside a prison washroom, but if you're Isaiah Bone, then it's a whole way of life. Bro was more concerned about his hands getting dirty than being threatened by an entire gang here. Of course, by the end of the fight, we all realize why he had no reason to worry about anything at all, and instead, we start to feel sorry for the dudes who thought numbers actually mattered against a fighting specialist. And yes, I think you probably know this, but I still need to say how Michael Jai White is so goated for being able to pull off his own stunts. Like, those kicks are all him. No stuntman needed for that. And yes, there's also the obvious fact that he looks like he can take on the entire army all by himself.
I want you to tell every behind these walls that if they get the notion of me, don't.
Well, how about that? We've got yet another entry from a prison. You'd normally believe that these facilities have a lot of fights and riots breaking out every now and then in them, and you'd be correct. In the Raid 2, however, we get to see an extremely skilled display of fighting skills from Rama. Yes, I know that there are several other participants in this massive battle, and the camera focuses on all of them. But it's quite evident that our man Rama was the most dominant. He took out the biggest threats and also managed to fight against the cops without any extra padding. Plus, you need to understand just how tough it is to fight or even move with mud everywhere. The cinematography and camera movements totally hype up the scene, and it delivers well enough too. Props to the director there. Also, this got me wondering, the Raid movies only have a fraction of the budget compared to most other action movies, yet they're more realistic and genuinely good to watch. Why doesn't Hollywood learn a thing or two from them? When it comes to Jet Li, even the power of twins isn't enough to keep him down. They do try to taunt him in this sequence, but that doesn't really do a lot for them except maybe grant them quicker deaths. Agent Liu wasn't in the mood to mess around, and it was quite evident from the way he ruthlessly charged at the twins. I wouldn't say it's 2v1 at the same time though, mostly because Liu fights with Twin 1. Yes, that's literally what the casting sheet calls them. It was also funny to see how the both of them kept trying to taunt each other into making the first move, especially the first twin. Like, you're fighting with your lives on the line. Maybe a little bit more serious. Not that it matters to a man like Jet Li, because he managed to take down the both of them without sparing the mercy of their lives. Yeah, bro was like Patrick Bateman, but with slick fighting moves. It's always amazing to see when Asian cinema pits two legacy fighters against each other, and in this case, it's Donnie Yen versus Wu Jing in Killzone SPL. Well, it's technically Inspector Marquand versus Jackie, but at this point, we only watch these scenes because we know the badass fighters participating in them. The choreography was brilliant to say the least, but what's even more impressive is that a good chunk of the battle is believed to be entirely improvised, as I've mentioned in one of my earlier videos as well. You see, Donnie Yen and Wu Jing are buddies, and they were seemingly giving each other subtle signals throughout the alley fight to indicate what to do next. I mean, that's pretty badass as it is. and to see these two gods of combat unleash such swift attacks was pleasing to the eyes, even though at times it was getting difficult to follow their movements. The fact that multiple parodies have been made of this encounter only furthers the notion that it has its own fanbase. It does get bloody towards the end, but that's because the only way to establish a winner between such skilled combatants is to have one of them kick the bucket.
Fight me now! Come on! Back Muay Thai!
You know why I love movies like Ong Bak? It has a simple story, a very likable protagonist, and some of the best fights you'll ever see. Take the battle between Ting and Big Bear, for example. At first, it looks like it's definitely against Ting's favor, especially after seeing what Big Bear did to his opponents before this. However, all it takes is one insult to the Muay Thai, and then Tony Jaa awakens the enlightenment within him to smack down Big Bear with one single kick. That move probably generated as much aura as Sung Jin Woo, and yes, I'm gonna keep using him as my favorite aura farmer because I'm a solo leveling fanboy. Yeah. Anyway, Tony Jaa is the aura go in real life as he showcases some brutal moves, not just against Big Bear, who also tries to cheat with an extra fighter, but also against all the other dudes who came after him. Most notably, Mad Dog. Yeah, we all know that a name isn't just given to random attackers, and this guy sure proved his merit, although he's still no match against the god of Muay Thai. Man, I really want to watch movies like this on the big screen again. Jackie Chan really outdid himself here. Not only was he taking on two opponents at the same time, he was also combating two completely different fighting styles. In the movie, these two dudes are simply Morgan's henchmen, but one of them is Ron Smorenberg, who's supposed to be fluent in Taekwondo, and the other is Kwan Yung, who's supposed to be a master of Kai Li Fo. I may not know much about these styles. What I do know is that they're sure to pack one heck of a fight against Jackie, which also happens to be his name in the movie. I've really got to give it to Ron in particular because those high kicks would have had anyone other than a martial artist legend begging for mercy. The little showdown he had with Jackie in the middle where the both of them pushed their swiftness to the max was super impressive, and let's not forget that the whole thing is happening on a rooftop. It was thorough entertainment all round, and I'm proud to say that I never got bored of watching this fight, even though I must have done it at least 100 times. Yeah, I'm a fan, alright. Top 10 time has never felt more criminal because this one involves a narc raid. So this only has Rama mostly doing all the action by himself, but I will give some credit to Old Man Wahyu, who spent the entire scene smacking his opponents against tables or cabinets. Now, the lab fight is impressive for a lot of reasons, the most obvious one being Rama's flawless display of martial arts. However, one thing that really took me aback was that each of the dudes he fought seemed to be extremely skilled in combat. Like, is there some kind of minimum requirement before you become a criminal in Indonesia? The cops wouldn't stand a chance against guys like these if they were the case all over the world, right? Of course, there were some fighters who were tougher than the others, but none of that matters when the main character is as skilled as Rama. Bro even helped out Wahyu when he was being taken on by two dudes at the same time. Sometimes I wonder if Ika Uwais even gets tired in the middle of these hectic shoots. Bro looked ready to take on another squad even after pulling off so much damage. It's not often that you see a master of the art like Jackie Chan showing appreciation to someone outside his industry when it comes to fighting skills. That's exactly what happened with Benny Awkwardest though, as the battle between him and Thomas in Wheels on Meals totally won Jackie Chan over. The abilities of both opponents was never anything to doubt, but a lot of praise must also be given to the director and the production team for making the whole sequence so engaging to watch.
Take it easy. Just think of it as a training session. Don't panic.
We could trust the fighters with the choreography, but the ample lighting and the wide angles made it a lot more appealing to watch. I'd even go so far as to call it the Mona Lisa of fight scenes. Although I'm sure I've said something similar about it before. Anyway, the fight goes on for a whole 5 minutes, and trust me when I say that it would have been the most thrilling 5 minutes for a lot of people back in 1984. Yes, there are some funny moments in between as well, but that's pretty much Jackie Chan's brand image at that point. It takes nothing away from the sheer brilliance Thomas displays when he goes God mode and defeats Benny with a smash through the window.
One, two, three, four. 2, 2, 3, 4. 3, 2, 3, 4.
Donnie Yen and Colin Cho are extremely respected names in Asian cinema, and their encounter in 2007's Flashpoint pretty much gave both of them a lot of global exposure. Sure, Donnie was more popular, but remember that this was before his Ip Man days, so it definitely gave his career a boost. Anyway, I'm not here to discuss career trajectories, I just want to show love to the epic battle between Inspector Junma and Tony. Those moves were out of this world, and it's a rare case of both fighters awakening their best methods to try and outdo each other. For the most part, it's an equal battle, and it probably would have stayed that way too, but they had to have the cop winning, so Inspector Jun tries to end the fight by holding Tony in a chokehold. The skills on display were definitely supreme, but I have a very genuine question here. How the heck are those guys so agile and deadly even while wearing jackets and jeans? Sometimes I can't even get out of bed the right way if I sleep with my jeans on, and these guys have shown enough skills to take out whole armies. I guess that's the difference in ability that nobody can achieve unless they put in years and years of hardcore training. There's God mode, and then there's bone breaking mode. I think it's safe to say what category we can place Tony Jaa in. The Protector showed us the typical rage he displays in his movies. Similar to the Ong Bak series, but the passion with which he went around breaking bones here was a different level of rage. Can you even blame him for it? The man has just found out that his beloved elephant is now nothing more than a stuffed souvenir. I'd get pretty mad too, but I probably won't go around breaking the bones of dozens of skilled attackers after that. I simply don't possess that kind of skill. Calm and his elephant could easily draw parallels to John Wick and his dog. So the fact that the Protector came out 9 years before the Baba Yaga only adds further credibility to him. You know, I sometimes don't understand the logic of these group attackers. You're literally witnessing one man destroy so many fighters, just like you. And he's not even looking like he's begun with his destruction. So why the heck would you still want to fight him? Get the heck out of here as soon as possible, bro. Trust me, no amount of money is worth having your bones cracked worse than a chiropractor does. I know martial artists are usually confined to legendary Asians, but when you consider God mode fights, I'm sure the name Undisputed 3 comes to your mind, doesn't it? Honestly, Scott Adkins should have received an Oscar just for his abs throughout this film. But hey, I'm here to focus on Boyka's epic encounter with Dolor. The match was exciting and difficult to watch at the same time because it kind of looked more realistic than the fights we watch on live television. Dojo may not look as threatening as a final boss, but his technique can't be argued with, and he wasn't afraid to play dirty, as could be seen when he started going for Boyka's injured knee. Now, call that cheating, but in this world, I guess anything goes, which is why it's so much more impressive to see Boyka winning with such ease eventually. It's like bro literally awakened some dormant god within him and won the fight without any inconvenience from that point forward. The final attack, where he uses his own injury as his strength, was a stroke of sheer aura, as bro ended up incapacitating his opponent in the most dominant fashion you'll ever see. Yeah, I think it's high time Scott Adkins and Michael Jai White got their rematch. Jet Li's been dominating this list like a total pro, so it shouldn't be a shocker to find him in the top 5 as well. General Go was a total menace in 1994's Fist of Legend, but Chen was up to the fight, even though bro really had to pull out all his tricks to finally defeat his opponent. It's an extended sequence that gives us the best of both fighters, as they don't relent at all throughout the entirety of their epic encounter. It's quickly established that General Go is a threat with his near superhuman durability and Chen's futile struggle against him at first. Then Jet Li spends the bulk of the fight doing piecemeal damage, whittling Billy Chow's defenses down until he can start delivering critical strikes, culminating in a weapons exchange. It really is cinematic perfection in terms of fight scenes. Now look, Jet Li was always going to show off, but we should always show love to Billy Chow, who was actually a successful kickboxer. The tenacity he showed us was top notch. Bro simply refused to go down, even if it meant having to land a sneak attack with his sword. Of course, Chen was up to the task as he managed to unleash a brutal counter to his methods. I can't believe I didn't realize what scene Jujutsu Kaisen was referencing when I saw that battle between Choso and Yuji Itadori. I guess even the most popular manga artists couldn't escape the sheer brilliance of the kitchen battle between Rama and the assassin. Like, damn, those dudes really gave it their all in this fight, and it serves as a perfect depiction of how martial artists look when they're unleashing all their skills. To be honest, I'd say both fighters unleashed God mode on each other because it was a fight between equals. Nobody was really gaining the advantage until the very end when the blades did their thing, and that too was probably because the plot needed to happen. Even after Rama took his opponent down, the look he gave us was that of respect and admiration for his opponent. It was almost like, damn, I finally won. And yes, full credit to the assassin for giving us such an amazing fight with a protagonist filled with gore and determination like we're not used to seeing. It's not a short scene, and yet we remain hooked for the entirety of its duration. The choreography was on point, and I'll still maintain that I believe the actors genuinely must have at least landed a couple of blows on each other in this one. Like, that's way too realistic for those strikes not to have smacked their targets. They say you shouldn't be drinking and driving, or even drinking at all depending on your health, but Jackie Chan ain't the type of guy to listen to others. Yep, this is the man who made the concept of drinking and fighting a trend, and this is way before the era of TikTok and Instagram. Wong finds himself in a bit of a pickle during the final battle of the film, mainly because of John, who's played by the established Ken Lo. Wong doesn't only have John to face off against, but he does realize the life of sobriety isn't going to get him through this, so he pulls out the booze and activates God mode like no other. The fight choreography is insane, even though the final battle is supposed to have strong elements of humor as well. Do you even know the kinds of techniques he uses here to overcome his opponents? I won't be able to pronounce the Chinese words accurately, so I'm going to give you the English translations, okay? Wong unleashes the drunkard with inner strength and also uses moves like the drunken woman flaunting her body and the drunken flute player with the powerful wrists. Now, I'm not making this up, unless of course my online translator is just as drunk as Wong himself. I know you might be worried about Bruce Lee not finding his way onto this list until now, but hey, I'd never disrespect a legend of the game. As a matter of fact, this scene from 1972's Fist of Fury is going to show you exactly what happens when you do that. Chen Zhen wasn't going to take a bunch of Japanese dudes humiliating his roots, so he decided to implement the ultimate form of embarrassment by taking on a whole freaking dojo himself. And if that wasn't enough for him, he also took down the sensei of that dojo too. If you look at how the fight's structured, you'll notice that Bruce Lee doesn't even use his hands for his first set of opponents. He's mostly taking them out with his kicks and starts using his fists only after having already made a bold statement to everyone in attendance. That sensei must have really been questioning his own teachings, especially after he himself got violated in front of his own students. Yeah man, I think an apology right at the start would have saved this entire dojo from its lowest point in history. Here's a fun fact for you. This movie was a hit in Japan, even though the Japanese are shown to be the antagonists. The fact that Japanese audiences love Bruce speaks volumes about his influence as a martial artist and actor. Yes, this is a scene that has consistently made it to the top of my list, and for very good reason too. Plus, Donnie Yen gets the honor of starting and finishing the video, and why shouldn't he? After all, he's an extremely skilled martial artist, and even though there have been other legends who've dominated this list, especially Jet Li, I just can't bring myself to not put this as the chart topper. I mean, Ip Man is a classic, and the taking down of 10 karate black belts with minimum effort is probably the coldest fight you'll ever see from him. There were lots of things on Ip Man's mind as he carefully and tactfully destroyed his opponents, and the look on his face kind of says it all, doesn't it? For a man to be as structured and calculative in such a brutal assault is actually a lot deadlier than perhaps even seeing the Hulk run amok with rage. That's because Ip Man makes you wonder how powerful and destructive he can actually be when he wants to. It's aura farming at max potential, and you know the TV region just can't get enough of that now, can it? Also, I know it doesn't really matter, but you've got to show some appreciation to those 10 dudes who got their butts handed to them in this sequence. They do deserve some credit for being used as the main metric of establishing just how badass Ip Man really is. Hope you like this video. Please subscribe to the TV Regent, and here's another video that I know you're going to enjoy.